Hello and welcome to another episode of Mysteries with History, where I'll take you on the wild ride into the unknown, the strange, and the mysterious. Like you, I have questions, and like you, I want answers. Today, we will be talking about the 37th parallel. It is claimed, and we're not too sure yet, but is there a possible UFO highway? Where is there a constant line of UFO sightings? I mean, is there such thing as a UFO highway? Some researchers say yes. And when I came across this story or this kind of account, it was by accident. And so we're here to find out, or to at least guess, based off the data that we have, to see if that really is true. But before we really dive deep, let me bring in my co host, Jimmy Church from Fade to Black. Hey, Jimmy, how you doing this afternoon? The 37th parallel at all. Well, actually, this is a real thing. It is part of the latitude longitude. But if it being a UFO highway, that's where people begin to become skeptical.
Yes. Yes. This is one of my favorite subjects. And
That's what you say every time.
but okay.
Well, you did mention Ben and Chuck, and I think we might as well start off with these main people to the story. The book, The 37th Parallel, came out in 2015. So this is kind of like right before all of the heavy stuff was coming out, in 2017 when we were starting to get more tangible disclosure. So he was definitely writing at a time and even documenting at a time where it was still incredibly laughed at. I did watch a few of his interviews, and he did one interview with a news outlet, and I can't remember which one, but he had stated when he was being asked these questions about UFOs, you could tell in the host's demeanor, because there were two of them, they were kind of laughing at him while asking these questions. And one of the women was like, "Oh, so did anyone like not take you seriously?" And Ben laughed at it and brushed it off and stated, "The only person that didn't want me to write this book was my own father." And that was very comical, and I think he handled that very well. But in this time, 2015, 2016, even the beginning of 2017, the news would cover it here and there, but more as a joke, or I guess more as filler than like actual news. And so he, even though Ben isn't necessarily a part of the community hardcore, in a sense, he has brought it into the limelight towards his community. Which,
Mhm.
which, which, like you had stated, he's written multiple books, and they're more related to the real world. One of them was written called like The Accidental Billionaire, and he writes about Bitcoin. He writes about things that are tangible for the everyday man and woman. But this book, when it came out, it kind of stirred things up, and I'm not too sure how it did. I didn't know how well it sold, but I read the book. I got to get an understanding of who Chuck is. Chuck, what's his last name? Um,
Zukowski.
Zukowski. That's such an awesome name. The point is, I had not known who Chuck was until after doing the research and after even seeing his TV series. I kind of skimmed through it and I was like, well, this is incredibly interesting. Because when I was doing the research of the 37th parallel, I didn't find it that easy. I did not from first by doing kind of like a brush research. When I do my research for this show, for these types of shows, for those that don't know, I like to start off basic and then dig deeper down because I'm going in blind. I don't know what the topics are about until after I do a little bit of research. So I found this topic in particular difficult to really push and being like, yes, UFO sightings are mainly in the 37th parallel, because that, from my own research, that wasn't necessarily the case. It kind of fluctuated between like the 33 to like the 38, 39 parallel. And in that section, yes, you're getting a lot more. But to state that the 37th parallel is the UFO highway, it's a little bit of a stretch for me. And here is the map of the 37th parallel for those that are watching this on YouTube or on Twitch. As you can see, it just goes practically a little bit below the middle of the United States, and this is something that goes across the world. And I was really trying to make sure to see which cities in particular hit that line. And what I found was quite interesting, and hopefully we'll get to cover some of those stories today.
Okay. Let me say this. Although I agree with you that when you look at the maps and you start poking pins in these encounters and take a look at things and the frequency of the 37th parallel and how it comes into play. Okay. Yeah. And are some of them a little north, a little south? Right. Yes. Okay. I understand that. And you can look at the 38th and you can look at the 40th. You can look at the 36th and the 35th and find a preponderance of sightings and things that happen along these particular parallels. Except two things. First off, you have to think about the 37th parallel and the rest of the earth. That's the first thing. It's not just a United States thing. And I'm going to state a fact, an FACT fact right now that everybody can go and check out. And one of the best resources that you can have at your disposal is Google Earth Pro, not Google Maps. I'm talking about that. That's right. Longitude, latitude. And as you are spinning that globe, you can immediately look and see your absolute grid point. Okay. And wherever you go on Google Earth, and especially when you mark something, you get the exact longitude and latitude, and you can then zoom out and start to take a look at the big picture of things globally. Are we clear? All right.
Absolutely.
Now, this is the big setup. This is a fact. Area 51 is exactly, not a little bit north, not a little bit south, exactly on the 37th parallel. That's number one. And you spin that globe around and you follow that 37th parallel line. You go right over and straight through Göbekli Tepe. Now, is that a coincidence? Of course not. That is not a mistake. It's not a mistake on the CIA and Air Force's part to have Area 51 exactly, not a little bit, not like Christina's saying, right? There's a little north, there's a little south. It's not quite. No, Area 51 is on the 37th parallel. It goes straight through the middle of the base. Go and check it out. And then after you're done doing that on Google Earth, it's fascinating to see. Spin that map around. Follow this 37th parallel. Punch in search. Göbekli Tepe. And watch what happens. Straight through Göbekli Tepe. Now, when we talk about the United States and the UFO highway and the 37th parallel, that's fascinating. We're going to go through these cases, and I know that Christina's got a bunch of stuff to present here. But when you go and you look at the facts of the case, when I push this, we're talking about 2 points on opposite ends of the globe, two of the most significant locations on planet Earth, Area 51 and Göbekli Tepe, both exactly on the 37th parallel. That right there should force everybody into taking a second look at this and understanding why this is happening. I don't know the significance of the 37th parallel and why this is happening, but somebody at the CIA did. The CIA built that base in the desert, right? Okay. And you go back to ancient man, 12,000 years ago, out in the open, there's nothing there. And they just happen to, by chance, build the most significant site of humanity exactly on the 37th parallel. Somebody help me here. So when you pick this show to do the 37th parallel and its significance, this is an important show. And I think that everybody should go and take a look at this. The same thing happened to Ben Mesrich. The very same thing. He started looking into this as a researcher, as a nonfiction author, New York Times best-selling author, very respected, not only in journalism, but around the world. And he's starting to look at these cases and the significance of the 37th parallel. And he said, I need to put this into a book. And that is the 37th parallel. Cristina, great call today. And that's another gift that I just gave to the audience. Just go and look. Area 51, opposite side of the earth, Göbekli Tepe. It's like the beginning and the end right there on the 37th parallel.
And there's a few others. In that book in particular, Ben states that even the alleged Dulce base is also on the 37th parallel as well.
Yes, it is. Mm-hmm.
Now, when I was going through the information, trying to get my hands on absolutely everything, and even looking outside of the book, obviously, as all researchers should do, you shouldn't focus on one source, but you need to go to multiple sources. What came to mind, the first thing that kind of popped up, and like, okay, what's special about the 37th parallel? Why is it even being talked about? So I went ahead and I was thinking, could it maybe be on a ley line? Like, could that be a possibility?
Yep.
So, and we've briefly talked about ley lines, and even when trying to read books and watch things and try to understand what ley lines are, I still don't find it incredibly easy to understand. It's not something that's like really proved by science. It's more of like what people would claim as you can just sense this kind of energy line. So it's very alleged, right? These are just anecdotal ideas of what ley lines are. So I went to Google and I said, "Okay, Google, tell me.
Right.
Show me a ley line map. What does it look like?" And they all looked different. For me, it was very difficult to see, does the 37th parallel lay on a ley line? Are they the same thing? And based off the maps that I was able to acquire, I did not see that to be the case. But again, they were all completely different. None of the maps that I saw looked the exact same. So I wanted to ask you that question from your research for doing this for, you said, from 10 years ago. Do you think that the 37th parallel lays on a ley line? And for those that don't know what ley lines are, can you briefly describe what they are?
Well, okay. And then I'm going to give another suggestion here, but I want to stay in the 37th parallel. Ley lines are energetic lines that lie in ley lines, right? That lie in a certain direction, and historically over time, different constructions, whether it be a town, a village, a temple, a site, an object, a location, that churches, right? Political buildings, governments that are constructed on these lines, and you can see them, especially today when you pull back and you're able to, with technology today, see this, and these grid patterns start to show up. That there must have been in some of these cultures that build on these ley lines are 50, 100, 1,000 years apart. They don't know each other. Right. And they have no connection. So what are they doing? Sometimes over hundreds, if not thousands of miles or more, where you can find the shapes of the grid and the lines there, where you have to start to accept that somebody knew something and there was a reason for that. I don't know what it is. Yesterday, I had Jorge Luis Delgado on the show from Peru, and he was amazing. And one of the things that he said last night during the show, you couldn't see it because I was watching his video from Peru. But he said this thing. He goes, "So the ancients, the shamans, they're going around. They have a couple of heavy sticks, and they're walking around. Where should we build?" And he goes, "They're holding it out in front of them." And then Jorge goes, "They start shaking, and they're like, here, right?" Well, maybe it's something as simple as that. That you can sense, you can feel in your body the resonance that is going on when you're over these points. And whether you're an architect, an engineer, or just a leader of a town or the head of a family and you want to build a house or whatever it may be, why do you choose a site for things? Well, maybe, something is reaching out, boom, and you do it. Now, before we get all crazy town, where this is not reality, let me lay this out to you. Another ley line. Lay this out. You can draw a line, and I've done it. I've taken a giant globe and did what I'm about to do. You can draw a line from Easter Island through Machu Picchu, through Stonehenge, through the Great Pyramid of Giza. Straight line. It goes this way. Straight line. Straight line. And it's like, wait a minute here. And it's not off like a little bit. It's not like, it's whoa. So when we talk about a ley line going through, England or Europe or North America or South America, short to 50 miles. And they, yeah, exactly. But I don't think it's a coincidence that you can go from Easter Island to the Great Pyramid of Giza and then start and you look. I took it a step further, Christina. I gave everything a little bit of latitude, and I went 5 miles. That's it. Now look, so 5 miles. When you have the Earth, right? You're looking at the Earth. 5 miles on a line is just the width of a pinprick. Right? Yeah. Okay. So I just went 5 miles on either side and went up, and I found like 50, and it's just like right in a perfect row. Now, what's going on? Somebody feels something and feels the need and the necessity to do it right here at this point. And I find it fascinating. So, yes, absolutely. Now, does the 37th parallel fall into this? I don't think when you have an end point like at Göbekli Tepe, and I have, the starting point being, all the way out west at Area 51. That's not coincidence. And that is not coincidence. And we're talking about all the way around the world and 12,000 years between the construction of these two sites, and slapped it right there in the 37th parallel. Go ahead.
It's a weird thing. And with the 37th parallel, it's not just UFO sightings, and something that I found more difficult to follow on the 37th parallel, which maybe we'll cover a little bit later. But also, there are high accounts of cattle mutilations, ghost sightings, and even Bigfoot sightings. Now, when it comes to UFO sightings, there are a few that I covered, but first, I wanted to look at the most famous stories, right? And see, do they really land on the 37th parallel? So the first one I looked at, of course, was Roswell. And I'm like, okay, is Roswell on the 37th parallel? And the answer was no, on the 33 parallel. And I'm like, okay, let's look at Phoenix, the Phoenix Lights, 33 parallel as well. Then I said, okay, what about Sedona? People claim it to be a vortex. Maybe there's a ley line there. Also the 33 parallel. And I'm like, that's interesting. Then I said, okay, now let's look at Travis Walton. Let's see what happened in Snowflake, Arizona. And that one's pretty close. That's at the 34 parallel. But later on doing a little bit more research, and I did not go over every single case due to lack of time, but the ones that did hit the exact 37th parallel was, like you said, Area 51. Then you have the alleged Dulce base, and the first story that I want to hit on that also happened on this exact place is the Kelly Hopkinsville encounter, August 21st, 1955.
Out this far, and you look, and you see in relation to the United States and what is going on here. There's the 30th, right?
Mhm.
There's the 35th and 40th. See, that's the 47th, right? Are you
Yes.
with me?
Yes.
Okay, so there it is right there. Let's zoom in, zoom in, zoom in, zoom in. And then this is what's great about that you can't, everybody can see it here. You can see the grid lines, and as close as you want to get as you zoom in, and then you've got your spot here. You can click on that, and it's going to tell you exactly where you are. So it's north 40 degrees, 15 minutes, 31 seconds. And there's Skinwalker right there. Now, also, that's the main building for Skinwalker, but how big is Skinwalker Ranch? And does it start to, get closer to the actual 37th? But there you go. Yeah, I just absolutely love Google Earth. It's great.
It's Google Art is pretty fantastic. It helps me get from place to place because reading a map these days, I don't know how to read a map.
Yeah,
Like to go from like store to store, be like, well, here are all the main roads, and then take a right here, and then like know where, dude. No, I need a GPS. I need Google Maps to get me to the
yeah.
grocery store.
Pull up my screen again now that we know that we can do this. Okay, this is my screen. Okay, so here's Area 51 right here. You can see. Okay, this is the 30th parallel. And if you zoom in here, let's just call that's the 35th, the 37th, which is here. There's Arizona, there's Nevada, and there it is. It'll be, somewhere in here, but there's the 35th. So let's swing this baby around. Let's just swing this around, and we'll follow. This is the 35th. Let's just follow this around, follow this around, follow this around. And there's the 35th. There's the border right here, right? There's the 39th. Now I'll come up
Mhm.
here and let's go Beckley Tappy. As you can see, I've already got it selected here. So let's do that and watch this. Watch what happens. Let's zoom in. There it is, 37th parallel.
And Jimmy, can you, for those that don't know the infamous story about Göbekli Tepe,
Go,
can you, can you just talk
okay,
about it?
just slowly with me. Go Beck Lee. Say it. Go Beck Lee
Göbekli
Tepe.
Tepe. Göbekli Tepe. Thank you. Well,
Yes.
it's
Okay.
awesome that it's related to the 37th parallel, which is today's show. Can you just, what's it all about? Tell me.
This is the oldest construction of anything by humans discovered yet on planet Earth. That's it. It's 12,000 years old. It's right here. Now, okay, this is the other part. You know what's really bizarre? And you can see it here. It's on the 38th latitude and 37th longitude. It's on the 37th and the 38th parallels on the corner. It's like, what? And here it is. Here's the site. It's a megalithic site. It's the oldest. Some are calling it a temple. Some are calling it the first religious temple. It's actually the first of anything. And it was built 7,000 years before the Giza Pyramid and the Giza Plateau, allegedly. So here it sits. It's right on the border of Syria and Turkey. If I back this up and back this up, this is Syria here. This is Turkey here. Now, but this is crazy. The crazy part for me, if you just back this out, right down the street, you see the 37th parallel right there, right?
Mhm.
So you back this up, and right down the road walking distance, here's the Giza Plateau right here. It's
Distance.
just like right there. Just a stroll through the desert.
Just
And
casual.
it's a fascinating thing. So, again, here's the 37th parallel, everybody. And here's Göbekli Tepe right here. There's the 37th. And so when you back out of this, just studying the closest line that's represented here on Google Earth, which is the 35th parallel, and you can just go through on Google Earth and just zoom up, name a site, and then see if it falls on. Here's this 37th right here, and see if it does. And I've done it many times, and just follow the 37th across, and there's Great Britain.
Yeah, you're gonna hit some weird places, and then you're gonna have encounters like which I have talking about, for example, Roswell, Phoenix, things of this nature that are gonna be somewhat close to it, not necessarily on the line, which I fell for it. I thought the 37th parallel was the UFO highway, but you gotta be a little lenient with it. You can't be strict on the 37th. You gotta kind of like be flexible. People like other people that are flexible, not so rigid. In the same case, probably the 37th parallel wants you to be more laxed. And for myself, I was very rigid. I was like, no, this cannot be true. So, but what I'm getting at is it's kind of hard to explain from the research that we have done, from the research that even Ben Mazrich has done and Chuck as well. It's makes you question. There are so many things on earth already that we can't explain. What are the things that are happening outside of our earth? And I find that in a sense very beautiful. It keeps you always wondering what's next. And as we can tell, Jimmy is going through the book right now.
Go through the book because there was a couple of I haven't gone back and reread the book, but I was looking for there was a chapter in there that I found extremely fascinating. That again, I didn't realize. And then once you pull up Google Earth and you start looking at the 35, 36, 37, 38th parallel, and what's happening there historically, you go, well, it's right there, right? This is an imagination. And that was Foo Fighters in World War II. And I remember that Ben had a whole chapter about that
Good.
and how the Foo Fighters were reported back then on the 37th parallel.
It
And
was on the
yeah,
50th parallel.
oh, see, that's my memory. I didn't go back and
No,
read.
because I mean, look, you would think it would be, but when I was going through those coordinates, it had stated, and I even took it off my notes because I was so disappointed. But it was talking about like a German. It was a German territory, and I was like, oh, this is so cool. And then I Google it, and it's actually on the 50th parallel, and I'm thinking, oh, that I can't tell the story now.
And thank you, Christina, for tossing me around like that, throwing me under the bus. It was one of my fondest memories. It was glowing. And I used to just think about this every single day. The Foo Fighters from the 37th parallel. And
I was
it turns
excited
out
too. I
it
was
wasn't
excited
real.
too.
It turns out it wasn't real.
No, no. I mean, it probably happened. These people aren't lying. It just didn't happen on the 37th parallel. Now, there's another story that well, before we even get to the story, something that I want to mention is Las Vegas is also on the 37th parallel.
Mm-hmm.
And John says, Hi, John. He says, also, it's been said that even older sites very close to Göbekli Tepe have been found, and the excavations will be ongoing for a very long time.
Absolutely. And they have found 11 more sites. So now they're calling it 12 Tepe, not Göbekli Tepe, because they found 11 additional sites. And Don D is just coming in here too as well. Okay, so because we're talking about the 37th parallel, it's fair, it's safe. We're in a safe zone here that we can actually talk about Göbekli Tepe because the connection is glaring. The other connection of building a den of sin, like the city of Las Vegas and the 37th parallel. Not a coincidence either. But
It's
anyway, it is a pure den of sin, knee deep in fluids that we can't even describe on this family show. It's incredible. Okay, so anyway,
That's not, but it's that one I
right?
found kind of bizarre. I was like, "Whoa, no way," because there are a sufficient amount of sightings in Las Vegas. But one thing we need to keep in mind, especially in modern day sightings, or even in the past, it doesn't matter, you also need to look at the population. Of course, there's going to be a lot more sightings in Las Vegas because the population is so dense. You have
Mm,
more people to go ahead and state, I
mm,
saw this thing, I saw that, versus maybe in a small town of, let's say, I don't know any some small town somewhere that has like a population maybe 50,000 people. You're
mhm,
not going to have that same flux of sightings simply because there are less people. So with Las Vegas, I feel it's kind of like a little wishy-washy, at least for me, from my understanding from the data that I've collected, just because it already is a very densely populated town. And
mhm,
especially in modern days, right? People can easily mistaken UFOs that could either be airplanes or even Starlight satellites by Elon Musk.
mhm,
So, for those that are presently want to do UFO sightings, that want to just go enjoy yourself out there and you happen to see something, I believe it's incredibly important to have applications or programs on your phone or on your laptop that can track satellites, that can track airplanes, and even your basic knowledge of astronomy, or like what's happening in space right now that we're possibly seeing. Could the UFO that we're seeing be Venus, like we've heard in countless
mhm,
Project Blue Book examples?
mhm,
So, in today's world, I feel like it's a little bit harder to attempt to distinguish what we're seeing.
mhm.
And Las Vegas is having a lot more sightings these past few years, and it could be for that along with the intense population density there.
Right. And I use 3 or 4 different software programs. And when you jump out there and you're looking into the night sky, I think it is very, very important. I can't tell you how many times I have seen the ISS fly over. And when the ISS flies over in the right conditions, you can actually see the solar panels. You can, it's high up there, but you can tell it's not just a light. You can see that there's structure to it. And when you see it fly over in really good on a good clear dark night, it's a mind blowing experience. And you think that it's ET. It just doesn't look right. It doesn't look like a moving star or just a single bright light. But you pull up a program like I have, and that tells you when literally the ISS will be flying over your location in 15 minutes, right? And so and any satellites that are up above you at that point, you can select that and it will tell you, and you can take your phone and hold it up to that portion of the sky, and it's going to tell you what satellites are right there at that time. Exact. I mean, it's exact. Also, the same thing applies to astronomy, and some of these programs have both inside of the program, so you can have both astronomical charts in the sky combined with satellites that are moving, so you're not thinking that some geostationary satellite that's above you is actually a star system or whatever. So I think that stuff is very, very crucial, because when you do see something that you can identify and that's caught your attention, and you're able to just do that, and you're watching the object, and you can eliminate everything that you need to eliminate at that moment, and then you can pull the phone down and then continue your observation. I think it's critical, and it's so great that we have these kind of tools at our disposal.
It
I
makes
have
things easier for
I
sure.
have them so fast on my phone, right? Where and they load quickly, they load immediately, and I'm able to go bam and see it right away. It's important. I use a bunch, and and you can just go search the App Store. I use Night Sky for astronomy. Off the top of my head, I have two satellite programs. I can't remember what the names are, but they're available.
They are, and they're easy access. And I think for those that are, again, brand new or that don't really know, you don't put into consideration that you kind of need these things in order to get more valuable results. We only have about 15 minutes left, and there's one more story I want to cover that I found interesting that once again is on the 37th parallel, and that is the Joplin spook lights. Have you heard that story?
Okay, what page is it? Yes. What page?
This one is not in the book.
Oh, it's not in the book. Okay. Continue.
It's not in the book. However, Chuck has mentioned it. He mentioned it in his New York Times interview. So it is he does know about it. And this one I really liked it, not just for the story, but for the potential legend that's attached to it. And this is where I really want to get into. But I'll read the summary first. And it says, according to legend, the spook light was first seen by Indians along the infamous Trail of Tears in 1836. However, the first official report occurred in 1881 in the publication called the Ozark Spook Light. And how it is described, it is stated to be a ball of fire, described as varying from size of a baseball to a basketball, and it says that it dances and spins down the center of the road at high speeds, rising above the treetops, and then it retreats and disappears. Others have said it sways from side to side like a lantern being carried by some invisible force. In any event, the orange fire like ball has reportedly been appearing nightly for well over 100 years. According to locals, the best time to view the spook lights is between the hours of 10 p.m. and midnight and tends to shy away from large crowds and loud sounds. Now, there have been countless explanations by skeptics saying, well, it can easily be headlights, it can be any kind of technology that we have today, it could be drones. However, it wouldn't explain the sightings that happened in 1836, 1881, where those things really were not a thing in your day-to-day places. Okay, at least it wasn't technology that was available to the public. But here's what I want to get at. At the very beginning of the show, I had stated the 37th parallel is not only UFO sightings, but it's also ghost sightings as well, high amounts. Well, this is kind of where the story leads into it. You have skeptics that say, yes, it was probably just your car headlights. But some people state that it could potentially be a ghost. And one of the most famous ones, and one of the oldest, is of a Quapaw Indian maiden who fell in love with a young, brave man. However, her father would not allow her to marry the man as he did not have a large enough dowry. The pair eloped, but were soon pursued by a party of warriors. According to the legend, when the couple was close to being captured, they joined hands above the spring river and leaped to their deaths. It was shortly after this event that the lights began to appear, and that attributed to the spirits of the young lovers. And when it comes to folklore, yes, it can be very difficult to place evidence or data, right? In this case, for 100 years, people have been claiming that they've seen these things, and then a story could have emerged from it stating that this Indian couple came together and they died together. But regardless of that, I think it's incredibly fascinating. It's a beautiful but sad story, something that probably Shakespeare would write. And it leads to the fact that sometimes you simply cannot separate the stories of UFOs and the stories of the paranormal. In many respects, they kind of work hand in hand for those that don't know how to explain what's going on.
Absolutely. And all of those are really great points. And I guess this will be my last show with you. You don't need me anymore. You're just too good.
Well, I learned from the best.
Is this? Nah, I'm going to hang out.